Philip Klass, a military expert, disagrees.
The fact of the matter is that it was not a weather balloon as such. It used a weather balloon as a vehicle, but what it was is called a radar corner reflector. It's an object that is roughly hexagonal so that it can be tracked by radar, and no matter what angle this hexagonal thing is pointing, it always returns a strong radar echo. So the object was not a weather balloon as such, but it used a weather balloon to hoist it.
If the object were only a weather balloon, UFO proponents say, then why did the Air Force pledge Mac Brazel to secrecy? And why did the Air Force pursue his son in the months that followed? Only 22 years old at the time, Bill could not help but be intrigued by his dad's discovery of the strange materials in this field. He searched for and found some remnants of the crashed object.
And I was talking about it. I went into Corona, and I was sitting there in the beer joint, and of course, my friends was asking me if I'd found any more or anything like this, and I said, well, I picked up a few scraps, about a cigar box full, and somebody, I don't know, must have informed the Air Force, because first thing I know, I have visitors, and they say they'd like to have this material. And they didn't tell me they'd confiscate it. They just said, well, like we're going to have it one way or the other, you know.
What Bill and his father found was taken to what is now called Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Some believe, however, that much more was taken there. What they say is the actual shell of a spacecraft. This spacecraft, they allege, was struck by lightning, causing pieces of it to fall away into Mac Brazel's field. The craft itself, they say, crashed 78 miles away. The story has it that the spacecraft and the bodies of its alien crew members were then taken to Wright Field and stored in Hangar 18. Myth or fact? The Air Force denies the existence of craft or ET bodies. Nothing has surfaced in the Freedom of Information Act released top-secret government documents. Nothing to support what some claim is this actual photo of an ET's arm. The Air Force also denies the existence of Hangar 18 itself. Senator Barry Goldwater has written that he has tried to gain access to the legendary building. In letters to UFO proponents, Goldwater enigmatically says that he has given up trying to solve the mystery. Not because he's satisfied with what he hears, but because it's just impossible to get anything on it. Nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman, however, believes the evidence is there.
There's just no question at all in my mind that a saucer did crash, that bodies were found by the government, that the saucer itself was picked up by the government and carted off for study. The tremendous potential for gaining new technology from a thing is just enormous, and no government would be foolish enough to put it on display instead of carting it off to the laboratory.
Look, it's one of these situations of where if I were a freelance writer or I'd like to make a story, I would love this story. It's great. It would make good copy. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I happen to be a scientist, and I have, you might say, the Hippocratic oath of a scientist. I will not say something is so until I'm very certain in my own mind that it is. So as far as the creatures are concerned, I honestly don't know.
Dr. Hynek, a noted astronomer from Harvard and Northwestern universities, has been a persistent investigator of UFO cases. In 1952, he was asked by the Air Force to join Project Blue Book, their UFO investigation unit. 17 years later, he joined Air Force Secretary Harold Brown at a press conference to announce the team's conclusions.
None of the evidence that I have examined would indicate any proof at all that we are being visited by extraterrestrials.
What is the Air Force hiding in this investigation?
We have not been hiding anything. The investigations have been made public. The explanations of those where there is a clear explanation have been made public. The hearing this morning was public for just that reason.
Project Blue Book was activated to deal with what the media was calling flying saucer hysteria. They investigated 12,518 sightings. They could not explain 701 of them. Doubts lingered long past the report's publication. Even supporters of the project's conclusions had to wonder about photographs like these. In a series of 3 pictures, one can judge relative size because of the car window, the telephone poles, and the highway. One can also speculate about the dirt being kicked up into the air. Dr. Hynek, the leading scientist on the Blue Book panel, began to have doubts. He personally went to Brazil to talk to the man who took these pictures. He discussed the matters with the president of Brazil and with photo analysts on both continents. By 1973, he had completely reevaluated his Blue Book experiences. He now became a critic of the investigation and an advocate for more UFO study.
I was there at Blue Book, and I know the job they had. They were told not to excite the public. Don't rock the boat. And I saw it in my own eyes happen that whenever a case happened that they could explain, which is quite a few, they made point of that and let that out to the media. Things that the cases that were very difficult to explain, they would jump handsprings to keep the media away from it. For they had a job to do, to, whether rightfully or wrongly, to keep the public from getting excited.
Hynek's concession that it was possible that extraterrestrials were visiting us raised the UFO debate to another level. A major establishment astronomer and a man trusted by the